It's been over a month since I last gave you an update on the dangerous games the West is playing with Iran, especially after the reactivation of the Snapback Sanctions, and the truth is clear. Iran looks more prepared than ever. In Tel Aviv, panic is spreading as many fear the war that ended in June could return with even greater intensity. On the streets of both Tehran and Tel Aviv, people have rushed into panic buying, stocking up on essentials to brace for inflation and shortages that might accompany renewed conflict. Both the Israeli shekel and the Iranian rial have taken hits, losing value amid oil price uncertainty and speculation about what the coming weeks could bring. While Western diplomats continue with empty statements, Iran's real response is military. Air defenses are being reinforced, radar systems recalibrated, and early warning networks expanded to ensure that any Israeli or US strike would be detected before it lands.
However, there is no justification for the brutal killings of the civilian population of Palestine or for terrorist attacks. There is also no justification for the collective punishment of Palestinians in the Gaza Strip, where Palestinian children are dying from bombing and starvation. Hospitals and schools are being destroyed, and hundreds of thousands of people are being left without shelter. There is no justification for plans to annex the West Bank. We are essentially dealing with an attempt at a kind of coup d'etat aimed at burying UN decisions on the creation of a Palestinian state. The strikes on Iranian facilities under IAEA safeguards deserve condemnation, as do the strikes on the capital of Qatar at a time when negotiations with Hamas were being held there with the participation of American mediators, among others. Yesterday, in the Security Council, the West rejected a rational proposal by China and Russia to extend the 2015 agreement on Iran's nuclear program in order to allow time for diplomacy. This has finally exposed the West's policy of sabotaging the pursuit of constructive solutions in the UN Security Council and its desire to extract unilateral concessions from Tehran through blackmail and pressure.
Reports have already emerged of a massive Russian cargo plane landing in Tehran, sparking speculation that Moscow has begun delivering long-promised systems. Some claim it was carrying S-400 air defense units, while others suggest it included advanced fighter jets like the Su-34, the very platforms that would give Iran the capability to directly challenge Israeli air superiority. For years, Moscow hesitated, but with Europe openly defying Washington's push for snapback sanctions, Russia now has the political cover to move decisively. China, for its part, has been quietly funneling air defense equipment and technical components to Tehran, ensuring that Iran is not only replenishing what it lost in past strikes, but also expanding its ability to resist the colonial occupiers in Palestine. I will bring more on that in a moment. For now, let's see how Iranian leaders are reacting.
President Trump has said that the enrichment facilities targeted were completely and totally obliterated. Is he right?
از خودشون بپرسیدشون اعلام کردم که خلبانای ما خیلی رشید بودن، شجاع بودن، اومدن بمباران کردن و موفق بودن. دیگه حرف ایشونو نادیده نگیرین.
What's your assessment of the extent to which these sites have been damaged and how much this has set back Iran's nuclear program?
ارزیابی خیلی دقیقی ندارم تو این زمینه، ولی به نظر من هیچ وقت برنامه هسته ایران رو نمیتونن از بین ببرن، چون وقتی شما صاحب یک تکنولوژی شدید اینا نمیتونن از بین ببرن. این مثل این که شما مخترع دستگاهی باشید، این دستگاه رو از شما بدزدن، شما باز میتونید بسازید.
Well, inside Iran, the political class is matching the military buildup with fiery rhetoric. Lawmaker Ismail Kausari confirmed parliament debated pulling out of the nuclear non-proliferation treaty, though the meeting ended without a decision. Top negotiator Ali Larijani dismissed Western and Israeli efforts outright, declaring that their attempts to stifle Iran's nuclear program are doomed to fail.
It's conditional.
بله، وقتی که اونا اینطور در مقابل ما بایستن و به زور بخوان یه قطعنامه‌های علیه ما انجام بدن، ما دلیلی نمی‌بینیم که با آژانس رابطه متعارفی داشته باشیم.
Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi went further, calling out the hypocrisy of the West, pointing out that Israel's stockpiles of nuclear weapons are unchecked while Iran, which has none, is treated as the threat. This double standard, he argued, is exactly why negotiations have collapsed and peaceful solutions have been pushed out of reach.
I should thank China and Russia for tabling this resolution and for all the efforts they made throughout the process of informal negotiations with other parties concerned. We also thank Guam and the Republic of Korea for their decision not to vote against this draft resolution. They have all chosen the right side of history, since this draft resolution reflected a genuine endeavor to keep the door for diplomacy and dialogue open and to avoid confrontation and contest. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, Iran has been a long-standing party to the NPT since 1970 and has acted as a responsible member ever since. We have pursued our inalienable right, as prescribed under the treaty, to peaceful nuclear energy with all transparency and readiness to address every question in good faith. 12 years ago, the P5+1 and Iran engaged, with foreign ministers meeting at the United Nations here and agreeing to seek a solution over the nuclear program. After 2 years of serious negotiations, the JCPOA, or the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, was concluded, a landmark achievement in multilateral diplomacy, unanimously endorsed by Security Council Resolution 2231. Iran fully implemented the deal, as confirmed by the IAEA in 15 consecutive reports. No country's nuclear program has ever been subjected to such rigorous inspections. Yet, in May 2018, the United States unilaterally withdrew from the JCPOA in clear violation of Resolution 2231 and international law, and began bullying other governments to follow suit. It presented no reason, no justification. Yet Iran remained fully compliant, predicated on European promises that their compensatory measures would protect the fundamental bargain of the accord, for Iran to agree to voluntary restrictions in exchange for sanctions lifting and other tangible economic dividends for the Iranian people. After more than a year of patience, and after the E3 made clear that it either would not or could not honor any of its promises, Iran was compelled to adopt remedial measures and reduced its commitments in accordance with its rights recognized under the JCPOA. Iran's measures were lawful, gradual, and fully consistent with its rights under the JCPOA and Resolution 2231.
What makes this moment even more dangerous is Iran's claim of having access to Israel's most sensitive files, intelligence about nuclear facilities, missile bases, pilots' homes, and classified documents. That revelation feels eerily similar to the days leading up to the 12-day war, when a wave of espionage leaks was followed almost immediately by Israeli strikes.
We realize now that the negotiations were designed to surprise Iran with a surprise attack. Iran was negotiating with Europeans when the United States attacked Iran, a few days after the Israeli attacks started. Iran gave the other side a lot of options, and because the U.S. did not like those options, Europeans, as I said, had to follow U.S. lead. So Iran has been at the negotiating table. The United States called their attack on Iranian nuclear sites a midnight hammer. So what they have done is that they have taken that hammer and they have smashed the negotiating table.
The difference this time is stark. Iran isn't negotiating, Iran isn't backing down, and Iran appears readier than ever to meet war head-on. Analysts like Max Blumenthal at Grey Zone have already warned that all signs point toward a confrontation that could ignite faster than the world expects.
It sounded like he was leaving the door open for diplomacy, but he emphasized that they would only enter negotiations on certain terms and that they obviously don't trust the U.S. He brought up a book he read by someone named Mitchell Clark called Endless Wars. And the thesis of the book is that the U.S. will never cease its regime change wars because of its insatiable lust for resources. And then he said that no doubt the U.S. will attack Iran again, and Israel will attack Iran again, that they will defend themselves more vigorously than before. And he pointed to all of the social cohesion that took place when Israel attacked Iran without provocation in June, that sectors of Iranian society that didn't previously, that had harsh criticisms, if not total opposition to the Islamic Republic, came together in support of the military. And he pointed to that as a real basis of Iran's strength going into the next inevitable war. He, on my question later, went off on Steve Witkoff, the U.S. negotiator, and basically called him a fraud and said that every time that he would meet with us, they wished they had recorded it. He would tell them one thing positive, and they would come out feeling positive, and then he'd go back to Washington and say another, which is something we've covered here a lot at the Gray Zone. So they don't.
Meanwhile, Russia and China are quietly but decisively shifting the balance of power in Tehran's favor. Reports suggest Russian MiG-29s have already arrived with Su-35s on the way, and whispers of advanced long-range air defense and electronic warfare systems capable of blinding Israeli radars are surfacing across open sources. Beijing's role is less visible but just as critical, supplying dual-use components, industrial materials, and technical know-how to keep Iran's missile and air defense ecosystem alive and growing. Put simply, Russia is helping Iran contest the skies, while China ensures the arsenal below keeps firing. Together they are making it far harder for Israel to exploit its conventional military edge. What does this mean moving forward? Militarily, Israel faces a harder, bloodier and riskier campaign if it chooses escalation. Politically, Netanyahu is staring at higher casualties, exposed vulnerabilities and domestic unrest if the conflict drags on. For Tehran, the Russian-Chinese backing doesn't guarantee victory, but it turns any quick Israeli strike into a prolonged showdown, one that raises the cost not just on the battlefield but in global diplomacy. This is the kind of strategic shift that reshapes calculations in both capitals, and from all indications, the countdown to confrontation has already begun. Thank you for finding time to watch. I sincerely appreciate your kindness and devotion to true journalism. Kindly subscribe to support me. That is one of the ways to support me tremendously to increase the channel's reach. God bless you.